right. So I am super excited to welcome on my mentor, Victoria Pippo. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm so excited to be here with you and spend time and energy connecting with you in this way, as opposed to all of the other ways that I have been able to support you on your journey.
Yes, it is going to be so much fun. And I know all my listeners are going to absolutely love whatever it is that we talk about today. We'll see how it all unfolds. So, why don't we start with who you are and what you do in the world?
You ever have somebody in the elevator who you get caught talking with, and then they ask you what you do in the world, and you realize that you're like, how do I explain what I do in an elevator to somebody? And I actually teach my clients this. It's funny though, because when it happens in real time, you're like, how do I explain a multidimensional soul in a physical body? Go.
I feel
So
like if I were to explain what you do, it's like she's kind of a big deal.
she's kind of
The end.
famous. Actually,
Let's go.
anybody who has over 10,000 followers, I consider to be famous.
This is the
I'm,
line I've said to Victoria. Context.
yeah, I am a healer in the most layman's of terms. People come to me usually with some sort of siphoning to their energy. So, for example, someone comes to me and says, Victoria, I don't feel like I'm totally living in the way that I am meant to. Or, Victoria, I feel this looping pattern I can't seem to get a grip of. Or, Victoria, I know I'm meant to have these beautiful spiritual gifts and I felt it all my life and I don't know how to harness it. So people usually come to me with some level of understanding that they are a powerful soul and they haven't yet totally experienced the full capacity of what that means for them. So global energy healing is really the fundamentals of what I do. Clients come to me, the most powerful souls that I know that God has given my work to, and I support them through energy healing. That is the basics of what I do. Further than that, usually the pathway of people in my world is that they recognize, oh my God, I'm gifted. Oh my God, I can create my own soul led business from this place. And so, usually, the next pathway for people is to kind of develop their psychic gifts in my world or even potentially grow a business. So, I work mostly with healers, but the way I consider a healer is anybody who cares about the goodness of this planet and anybody who is doing pure work in the world. That can be a doctor, that can be an herbalist, a nutritionist, a mother, anybody who is doing God's hand in the world. And then from there, really the next pathway for people is to support me in this movement called the Great Merge. The Great Merge is a movement that was birthed through me about a year and a half ago. And this is mission work in its finest. Light workers, healers, souls that care about the benefit of the planet come together in different places around the world to perform healing for the world. That is the highest intention. However, what people realize if you've ever done mission work before, any of the listeners, is that when you do selfless work for the planet, it gives you so much more than what you could have ever imagined. It helps you zoom out and realize what truly matters in the world in a way that investing in yourself just for your own personal development can't. And so people join me in the Great Merge. I consider that to be the highest manifestation of what I do and how people are called to my work. And that's because people are ready for the mission, the work beyond themselves. And so that is my elevator pitch. We clearly are on the 100th floor. It's a long elevator pitch, but that's what I do in the world. And that's how I help.
We're on the Statue of Liberty.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the Great Merge. I would love for you to describe kind of the process of how that unfolded. I feel that the listeners will absolutely love, the introduction of Tay and, how it all unfolded for you.
So in 2023, I was laying in my bed. I'm going to give you the whole story. I was laying in my bed and I was naked laying in my bed, like cross arm position in a prayer, practically looking like I'm getting buried in my grave, ready for sleep. And this being visits me by my bed. Now, at this time, I had never been visited by an alien before without my own intention. So, this was the first time I was ever visited. An energy came to me and said, my name is Tay. I need you to perform this movement called the Great Merge. And I said, what? I'm sorry. my fiance at the time walks in the bedroom, and he's not unfamiliar with me talking to random beings in the house, but he was a little bit like, "Are you okay?" And I said to him, I said, "Shush, shush, I'm talking to somebody." He's like, "Okay, okay."
This even hit Hayden's limits.
Like, it absolutely did. He was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go wash my face in the other room, let my wife do whatever she's doing." And so Tay actually brought me then into my office, and I started writing, like, information that felt like the most obvious information, but it was all new to my consciousness. And basically what he was seeding me with was the understanding that we are nature. A lot of us are very sensitive beings. We go outside in nature and we're like, "Oh, wow, I feel like a load is taken off. I feel more connected to my heart. I feel like I am sensing more of myself when I'm out in nature." But actually, what he taught me was that we are the four elements. And so he has me draw this wheel, and he splits it up into the four quadrants of the elements. But then he takes it a step further, and then he starts to draw the constellations. Now, I have, in early days of my spiritual awakening, 2019, 2020, studied like astrology 101. But this was all new for me. He showed me the 12 constellations overlapping the elements and said, "We are the 12 constellations, we are the four elements, and we are the one God." He basically explained that the constellations are portals and that we are portals. Basically, what that means is we are walking infinite beings that are composed of the four elements, that are also composed of these 12 elements, but they're all God. And so he had me write all of this out, and I felt like a crazy person. And I spent the next few days in complete lunacy. I could not understand this experience I had had and then being human. And that is totally normal for people who are on their spiritual awakening journey. And for the first time they connect with something, the first time they have a sensation they had never had before, it's totally normal that your body is trying to digest this information. And because it's unknown, it triggers everything that was once safe. And so I went through that process of feeling a little bit crazy, but thank Lord that I also have my own mentor in my back pocket who said, "This moment has been waiting for you and you're ready for it." All I needed was that confirmation from her that I was channeling what I thought I was,
Yeah.
that the being that came through was facilitating something accurate, and that what I was going to be doing was now the preparation of what is now the fourth and fifth merge happening in 2024 of all merges that we have done. And so I have now led 3 merges, soon to be my 4th in Ireland. And the way it works is quite simple. You know how people say 1111 make a wish?
Yeah.
Some people say, "Okay, we're at the 8/8 portal day because it's the Lion's Gate. It's on the 8th month, 8th day. It's a portal." So Tay actually chooses specific dates during portals. So like 8/8, 11/11, 10/10, certain portal times where the vibration of the planet is susceptible to great change. And then each great merge, he channels completely through me. I don't know what the merge is about. I only know the location based on what he tells me. He tells me the price, he tells me how many light workers, and then when the portal opens on the first day of the great merge, whatever teachings come out, come out. So we've done a great merge about the elements and only the elements. And then we performed elemental grid work. We've done a great merge exclusively for the constellations. So we learn about the constellations and we pull the constellations down to the earth to help people balance their bodies. And then in April of this year, we'll be working with the planets. So working with the planetary bodies, the 10 planets, to help align our relationship with our generational layers that need healing. And that's basically the knowledge he gives me before we begin. And so, in short, light workers are called from all over the world to contribute to what is the reawakening of the Christ consciousness that exists within all of our hearts, the remembrance of why we're here. And this is the most selfless act that we can do because it awakens our power, it awakens our trust, it awakens our light, it awakens our community and our contribution in a way that is so much bigger than what we could ever understand in our own minds. And so Tay and I are now very, very closely acquainted. We work together in this walk that is the big planetary shift that is happening on this planet. And it's an honor to be chosen to facilitate this work as these higher frequencies on the planet are at a very rapid speed installing into our bodies.
What an incredible experience. And I'm curious. So I know that you are very conscious of protection and being aware of that when it comes to, beings and entities. And so when Tay came into your energy, I'm curious how you were feeling about that, because that is something that maybe would be wouldn't be particularly inclined to do without some preparatory work.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point because at the end of the night, take my shield off. Otherwise, I have a shield up at all times. And
Mm.
so it was abrasive to my energy. It was invasive in other ways as well because I hadn't had that preparation to my vibration. In the same breath, I do spend a lot of my days quite masculine, holding a lot of clients, doing a lot of work. And so the opportunity for my vibration to truly be open and susceptible for his energy, I don't blame him for coming in at night because that's really when my energy is truly the most open, right?
Yeah, you are a very busy person. Like, you are a hard worker. You're doing a lot of stuff in the world, really important work. And yeah, so there maybe wasn't another opportunity.
There wasn't because I don't make my vibration available
Mhm.
for it. And so that's a big piece is that I have used my free will to not consent to any energy outside of my own guides. And so he came through, but he would have had a passage through my guides in order to gain access to me interdimensionally.
Yeah.
So there was consent in some way by my teams of spirit. And so actually, I had a conversation with my mentor about this, about Tay specifically, because at the time I was still learning how to gain my psychic capacity. This was the first time that had ever happened to me. And I remember saying to her, why me? And why do I feel like when Tay comes through, I feel such an intense connection with him, but I also feel a lot of drain, which can be an example of an energy or an entity that holds a lower vibration or that siphons you. You want a being that kind of fills you up.
Mhm.
And what she gave to me in terms of advice was really valuable. The first piece was that vibrationally, I was still learning how to grow. So I was already of a lower vibration. I was still learning how to work with higher vibration and then be able to bring that down into my body. So that was the first thing. There's going to be some sort of drain of some sort when a higher vibrational energy is trying to match a third dimensional body.
Mhm.
Secondarily, what she said to me at first really triggered me, but then it made a lot of sense. She said, here's the thing. Tay cares about you, but he cares about the earth more. And I at first was like, excuse me? He's using my conduit. I'm allowing him to utilize my conduit he needs to care about me. And she said, here's the thing. The earth is in such a pivotal place that the only thing that matters truly is that the rare vibrations that can hold this teaching and the evolution of these teachings and truly fulfill what is being asked, that is what is the most important to him. And he cares about your health. He cares about your protection, but he's also going to teach you when you're not being protected based on the way that your body responds to it. So
Mhm.
after the first merge, I think you and I were working together at this
Yeah.
time. I had a horrible infection after a wisdom tooth removal. And this was literally right after the merge. And my relationship with Tay at that time, we were on the rocks because I was really upset with him.
You're gonna break up.
And what he ultimately said was, you need to keep your gold shield, which is, in my opinion, like the strongest shield someone can have. You need to keep it up longer after the Great Merge. And so then when I did the next Great Merge, I had my shield up longer and I learned. So I learned through the interference and the trial and error and his higher vibration, how to effectively protect myself in order to be able to do global light work where there is a spiritual war happening between light and dark. And there is a lot of interference that does not want Victoria to fulfill this work.
Mhm.
And then also how I can use my light and build my full strength so that I can uphold the integrity of the work. So while that information at first was jarring for me to hear, at the same time, it helped me see, actually, I don't care about him either, really. I just care about the earth. So the equal recognition that we both deeply cared about the vibration of the earth allowed our exchange to actually be of mutual respect. Because I'm not giving my power to him, he's not giving his power to me, we're both giving our power to the earth. And
Mhm.
that was the gift of the reciprocity that has been built in our relationship since.
It's so interesting that you use that word reciprocity. Yesterday I was like, I'm going to do a podcast episode on reciprocity. And then I had a client and she was having an issue. And I said, do you feel that this is about reciprocity? And she's like, yes, that's the word. That's what I was trying to think of. And now you just brought it up. I feel like it's a concept that's really coming to the forefront in the world right now, that there's been such a take energy and so many power dynamics where people are doing things for their own personal gain without that spirit of give and take. And that is shifting right now.
I love that you brought this forward because Tay actually taught me this example about the earth element. And it was one of the most fundamental teachings that has impacted the souls who've walked that great merge with us. And it was this: the earth's natural way of exchanging is give and receive. It is always of bounty. But then what started to happen is that power came into play, but power regardless of the intention of the influence. So we saw that a lot with the systems that started to come in on this planet that were actually more so focused on lack and sacrifice, which threw off the natural harmony of give and receive. So a lot of people started to move from sacrifice, 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 and lack, which is, in my opinion, still greed in a sense. I want more, I want more, I want more, is really because you never feel like it's enough. So the
Mhm.
pendulum swing of greed is still lack.
Yeah.
And so what he taught us was to understand that everything that this earth gives you is meant to be enough for you. It is constantly prosperous. Everything that grows from the earth, you eat. Everything is meant to give you the bountiful supply that you truly need, right? Sun, oxygen, right? We have it all in bountiful supply. And he wanted us to start to connect with the natural reciprocity of give and receive.
Mhm.
Now, because the powers that were on this planet live off of the frequencies of lack and lack and lack and sacrifice, sacrifice, take, take, take. What's happening is we're learning how to remember our organic abundance again of give and receive. Like, this isn't balanced. You're taking and you're taking and you're taking and you're taking, but there's no receiving and there's no honest giving. There's no balance.
Mhm.
And finally, recently we had a very significant transit in the planetary bodies, and that was Pluto moving out of Capricorn and into Aquarius. I actually read this in a book. I have to quote this. It's from this book called Inner Sky. And this amazing writer talks about Pluto's energy. And he says, what's the difference between Hitler and Gandhi? In Pluto's mind, nothing, because power is power is power. The thing is about power, both of these individuals gained great power. One was for evil, one was for good. But the reason why they both were able to influence in such great ways is because they influenced an aspect of our psyche that was susceptible to their power. True power is being able to give rise to something that's already going on in somebody's subconscious. So we could say Hitler was bad, or we could say there was an aspect in that time where those psyches were susceptible to picking up on that subconscious truth that he was giving rise to. Same thing with Gandhi. Pluto is teaching us what true power and influence is in the world that is actually beneficial. Aquarius, all about pouring onto the earth and it pouring back onto us. All about learning how to come into community. That is the Aquarian energy. Power to the people, not power because I have money and success and this external influence that has power, external influence over you, but power because we are people. And the more people come together in reciprocity, that's true power. And so the way Pluto is influencing this change is seeing power out of the hands of people who want power for greed and lack purposes, and power to the people who genuinely want give and receive. So that's why you're feeling that reciprocity,
Yeah.
because that's the generational shift that's happening in our bodies.
Yeah, that is the exact message that I had come up with yesterday for this podcast episode. That
Oh,
I
of
see
course.
the power and control structures are really crumbling right now, and that reciprocity, whether it's in a workplace or in a community, that is what is actually, I see that coming into play, and also coming into, in the past, that power and control led to a lot of success for people, like external success. And I see that just not working anymore. It
Yep.
just isn't going to be um, come to fruition. That the reciprocity is actually the way that we will experience abundance in such a more beautiful and systemic way.
Yep. That's exactly it.
Mhm. Beautiful. Well, I can feel why Tay chose you because you are, well, for so many reasons, but one of them is you are you're very trusting with spirit. You're protective, but when spirit says, "Hey, we pick you," you're like, "Okay." And you just surrender to this process where I know if I were in your shoes, I would not be ready for the great merge because I would be thinking, how are we going to do this? Like, how are we going to find all these people that, like, we're going to Ireland? Like, I have to book a place in Ireland. How am I going to, and you have just surrendered to Tay's
Yeah.
direction and just allowed it to flow through. And that is such a strength of yours that you go for it.
Thank you. I'm glad it looks like that, because inside, some days it feels like I'm talking to a world of crickets. And then I bring it back to Tay and I'm like, why are we doing this? And this is the thing about leading something that is innovative,
Mhm.
because it takes time to catch wind when you're trying to innovate something.
Yeah.
When I'm doing something that is easily tangible for other people, the result is tangible for other people, it's easy for people to opt in. My
Mm.
business mastermind is evident. You can see my success. You can see how other people are getting success in my world. It's easier to catch wind.
Yeah.
So because it's innovated, that in and of itself means it's going to take more time to be nurtured and built into something.
Yeah.
That is one thing I've had to learn. The second piece of this is that because of the changes on this planet right now, people are moving their resources differently, and people are moving their bodies differently. A lot of people aren't like, let's go to Ireland today. That sounds like so much fun. Let me invest $8,800 into the planet. Like, yes, let's go. And I
Yeah.
respect that. I
Yeah.
don't choose the price. I don't choose the location. I don't choose the timing. I am the conduit and I trust. And so, from one perspective, that makes it easier, because the moment my ego gets involved, I remember it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
That's a good part of it.
Mhm.
But the flip side of that is that I find that the building of the great merge requires a lot of endurance and a deepening of faith that I truly, at this point now, have just finally been able to anchor. There were a few moments specifically that really anchored it for me. And it felt like I was talking to nobody when I was starting to lead the merge. And it was the first time I was ever going to do it in person. First time we did it was all virtual, which was fantastic. Second time was in person, and I did not feel ready. I had never space held before like that. I'm one person who is calling these people to do this thing that I hope works, because there's all these beings that I hope are the beings I think that they are, and we're going to go do this ditty. And I was getting all of this interference. And so there was a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of fear. And God brought me clear as day to a Bible verse. Now, I don't read the Bible until recently, actually. I was never called. But there is one specific excerpt from a Bible passage, and it says, essentially, God told Abraham, go to the nations and I will make you a great person. Like, I will raise you up. You go where I tell you, and you will become a great nation. People will know your name, and I will curse anyone who curses you, and I will lift up anybody who lifts you up. It was this phrase that basically said, basically go do the great merge.
Babe, you're
And
gonna be okay.
literally, like, well, the entire Bible, and I get this one verse that says, "Go to the nation I tell you to, and I will provide for you." And that moment there was one of my great exhale moments. Totally different than I see 11:11 on the clock or a coin on the ground or someone says something nice when I'm going through a hard time. This was a moment that was very clearly God's hand. And the second moment was after I finished the first great merge, we did our second great merge, excuse me, the first one in person. We did 4 ceremonies on the 8/8 day. We did 4 elements and 4 directions. So we focused on 4 different vortex points in Sedona. That was the location we were called to. And each location resembled an element. Save and accept the fact that I watched a version of me come online while women were purging emotions like I have never witnessed before. And it felt like I had wings, like golden wings. And I was just facilitating this crying and spitting and just like horrific somatic releases I had never seen in my life. And it was so beautiful that I could feel myself lifted. And
Mm,
that was the first key. But then finally we finished the last lightwork experience and it was nighttime. And my fiance says, "Look up." And everybody had finished. We had just cried and released. And we look up and there's a comet overhead,
no.
like 30 seconds, like a rainbow. We could all watch it and we're weeping and crying. And it's just right over top of our heads for at least 30 seconds.
Wow.
It was like pitch black out. We finished, we said, "And so it is." And this giant comet. It was one of those moments where you cannot deny
Mhm.
that what we did was true.
Yeah.
One of the women had pretty wild interference the moment after we finished it. And there was a voice that came in, an energy that came in that was like, "What have you done?" And so for me, that's also confirmation
Mhm.
because entities don't like that. They don't like you fulfilling your mission. And so to get that comment and then to get that voice, "What have you done?" It was like, we did what we needed to do. See you later.
Mhm.
And since that moment, something landed in my body in a completely different way. And those signs have been the anchor points that what I am doing and what I am being asked to do is not only so much greater than my human can understand, but it is it is everything that I could have ever wanted to contribute to on this planet.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so cutting edge and it's so selfless. It's something not only for you, but for everyone involved. It's not a self-oriented thing, even though anyone who would take part would also benefit.
Yep.
But that's not the purpose and the reason for it.
No.
And in that way, it is a harder sell in the universe as it is right now, because most people are very stuck in how does this help me? What do
Yes.
I get out of this, right? And I think we're shifting
Yes.
out of that, but we're not quite there yet.
Yep. And I had a chat with Tay a few days ago about the Ireland experience because I know where we're at vibrationally as a planet and I know how important this particular merge is. And then we have another one in Egypt during the 8/8 portal. And like, I know how strong these merges are. And this merge has been a little bit harder to gain the right traction for the right people. And I said, "I'm doing all the things. I
Yeah.
really am," which then makes me go, okay, if my energy's right and I'm holding the faith, I'm able to hold and sustain that power. And I'm really truly connecting with the heart of the people. The strategy is right. I'm speaking to what it is. I'm speaking it in a way that's effective. Then something else is going on. Because if the energy's right and the strategy is right, there's something else going on here. And Tay said, "You could do this alone and be as powerful as 1,000 men." And you need to remember that it's not about how many people you have inside the merge. It's about the power of the few that feel like the many.
Mhm.
And so that really landed for me in a way that helped my mind wonder why I'm continuing to do this. And I still feel like there's there's a build that is still happening, that maybe next year we'll do a podcast again and you and I will laugh and say, remember when I thought that there wasn't going to be a build and then there was like this huge surge and it's amazing. And
Yeah.
right now it feels like a
Mhm.
deepening into the momentum.
I've also noticed there's almost like a pause in the world right now. Everything's sort of almost like it's like God pushed a pause button and everyone's waiting.
Yes.
There's a building of
Yes.
momentum behind the scenes. That's what it feels like to me.
That's exactly what it feels like. And there has to be reverence and respect for the timing of the fact that people are actually finally listening to their bodies. They're listening to that sacred pause. They're listening to that deepening. They're being more discerning. And that's a gift. I'm going to
Mhm.
continue to do the work, and continue to follow the call and trust where I'm being guided to go. And know that if one person who wanted to come to the great merge but couldn't either resourcefully, financially make it work or in terms of time and energy be able to make it work, they will still feel the love that I am sending through in the great merge. And that's what it's about. Every merge I do, I always let my audience know, if you can be with us through these dates in prayer and ceremony for this highest intention, that would be appreciated.
Mm.
Every merge, we donate partial proceeds to a collective cause of our agreement, at least 10% of whatever the overall cost is of the experience. We've been able to invest over $10,000 to the homeless, to the Maui fires, to the oceans, to the rainforest. Like, what a gift. And that is what the merge is. It is the reciprocity
Mhm.
that, yes, the idea is that Victoria doesn't work for 40 days, 40 nights and gets 1 cent. Ideally there's something that Victoria receives in return beyond just what Tay is uplifting the planet for. But at this point, I'm still in a phase where the great merge hasn't totally become profit, but it has become so profitable in my heart. And that's enough for me to trust the traction.
Yeah, and, I love that it's not this profitable thing. You do make a lot of money in your other offers, right? Like, you have a whole spectrum and suite of offers from, very, affordable offerings to, the higher ticket type work that you and I did together. And if you just did the high ticket all day, every day, you would be a multi-millionaire, right? But you are choosing to do this very challenging, not necessarily always personally easy path.
Yep.
So I just want to honor you for that. You just said it doesn't even really make a lot of money, yet you are donating this money to all of these beautiful causes. Like, what a wonderful gift. And, I just think that's such a beautiful thing to do.
I've been like that all my life.
Yeah.
When I was living in New York City as a starving artist, if I had $5, I'd give $4 to the artist playing the guitar on the street. It's like, I get it, dude. You keep going. I have always been that person who has been beyond generous. And that's never going to change regardless of how much wealth I make. That's only going to continue to grow. I
Yeah.
remember when we did the Sedona merge, things were really tight financially because of all the big changes that were happening in my life at the time and the investments I was moving towards with my mentor and the life that I was leading at the time. And I was still like, we're all going to do like a lot, right? Like, we're all on the same page. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to fulfill it. I'm going to trust that God's hand is there. And then I had like a multiple 5-figure investment that came in literally at the exact same time that I sent out for the great merge. And I don't take that lightly, the way that God continues to pour, 100 times over. And chatting with my mentor, who is off grid doing the work that she's doing, and I'm very on the grid for the work that I'm doing. I have a lot of respect for the life that she leads, being an off grid psychic who does the work that she does in the world, high ticket, super risk based spiritual work. But I'm a world traveler. I love this. This to me, having time like this means everything to me. Being a professional performer for 20 years of my life, leading up to the great merge and everything that I'm leading, I didn't I never wanted that to die. I just wanted it to be rearranged. And so I like being able to do really risk-based, very, very important spiritual work for souls like yourself on your path. That's important so they can fulfill their contracts. but I also love to be able to travel and get my hands with the people that I'm meant to connect with in this lifetime. And I feel very blessed to have that privilege.
And even your social media presence, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty certain that I started following you because I thought you were hilarious. Like, it actually didn't have anything to do with learning, and then I'm like, "Dang, this girl knows a lot of stuff, like, oh, she's really smart too." I thought you were, like, kind of a comedian, because you did some funny spiritual video that I thought was so hilarious, and then I was following you, and then you did a single post where I was like, "This is the mentor for me," and I hired you, like, that week.
You literally came into my inbox and was like, "Hey, I'm ready to do this thing." I'm like, "Who are you? I love
Yeah,
this
what
so
is
much."
this? It just felt right, and yeah, I went for it.
Love
Yeah,
it.
but you're just so multifaceted. My point in saying that was, like, you have this side of you that's, like, such a performer, and I think it's interwoven with your work in the world, like, your spiritual work, and just has this beautiful blend that comes across.
Thank you. Actually, Tay and I had a conversation about that because sometimes I just want to know, why did I get chosen? And he said something around how I'm very stubborn. He'll tell me to stop drinking coffee and I'll say, okay, okay, okay. And then I'll wait until the last day before the merge and then I'll give up the coffee because my vibration is clearer without it. And I respect that. But he said something once to me. He said, Victoria, here's the thing about you. In my performance career, I had the honor of performing some of the most brash, bold, cutting edge leading ladies in musical theater history, such as Elsa, if you hopefully know who Elsa is. I sang Let It Go for 9 months.
Mm.
And that is one of the most challenging songs in musical theater history to sing for women. And I remember every time before I went on stage, regardless of how I felt, it's like, once that snow starts blowing and I'm on that stage by myself, it's me and those high notes, baby. Like, you got no choice but to let it go and hope that you're good. And he actually brought through that image and then kind of mirrored it to the great merge. And he said, every time you know before it's game time, you have a beast in you that starts to turn on. And I'm okay with the fact that you're that person in off season who gets really fat and puffy and who doesn't care and says, leave me alone. Like, don't bother me. Like, I'm eating all the donuts and the blah, blahs. And I do my thing because that's what being human means to me. But then watch my energy shift around like the final week of right before we go into the merge on the 16th. Something shifts entirely. It's like everything's gone that doesn't serve me in terms of, some of the more habits that I have that are not connected to the merge. And I turn on. Same thing as I did as a performer. And I really believe that's one of the main reasons why Tay could trust me, is because he knew that when it was time to go, I would go. And I have that balance that a lot of spiritual people don't have between being in this physical vessel and eating and enjoying the life that you want to live, whatever that looks like for you. And then being able to know that when I go into my client's work, I go into my client's work in complete conviction and integrity. And if I can't, I won't.
Yeah, and I know that about you. There were even times, let's say, where you were like, "I can't do it today," and very rarely, and we worked together for 7 months, and you were in my energy all the time, but you were very, very intentional and clear, very honest about, okay, you would never go in half-assed to
I
this type
can't.
of work, right? It just
Never.
isn't, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, and
I
I
would
think that
never.
that's a hallmark of, doing this work. I do find that there can be a lot of questions in your mind, when someone's stepping into more spiritual work. I know when I started doing readings, I would go into every reading, like, with probably not a very positive attitude of, oh my God, is this going to work? Like, what if nothing comes through? And then I'm going to be sitting in front of this person and then I don't have anything to say. And then I have to just tell them nothing's coming through, which of course wouldn't be the end of the world. But I had that worry every single time in the beginning. And then I would connect and get connected with the energy, and it would just flow every single time. It was completely fine.
Yep.
And that is kind of a muscle that you build up as you use your courage to step
Yep.
into something that it isn't certain. This type of work, like what you're doing in the Great Merge, is like a higher version of we never have entire certainty around this type of thing.
Never. And when I started my business in 2020 pulling tarot cards. So that was actually my introduction into spirit. If that version of me heard about the Great Merge, I would tell myself that I'm on glue and that I probably should never consider leaving the house again. So when it happened initially, it was all pulling tarot. I didn't know I was channeling. I didn't know anything. I was guided to a tarot deck, and I used the tarot deck, and I started to get confirmation when I learned about the tarot that started to open up things for me. And then I just fell in love with the tarot and I was pulling it every day. And I was sharing messages with people. Then I was like, wait, if I could do it for me, then maybe I can do it for somebody else. And at this time, I had had my first connection with a spirit guide who was my grandfather at the time. And that was weird, but I had confirmed it enough. I had challenged it enough, probably about 50 times before I was like, okay, fine. You're clearly my grandfather. Weird. Thank you for being here. I understand now. So that coupled with the growth of the tarot, that built me into, wait a second, maybe I'm the tarot. I wonder if I just like close my eyes and connect in the way I normally set up for my meditations. If I ask the question, I would ask the tarot, does something come through? And then
Mhm.
it did.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, let me see if my social media people understand it. So I'd say, March 10th energy update. Meep, 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 meep. And people would say, oh my gosh, this was so resonant. So I got that same confirmation that me pulling the tarot for myself gave to me. And that was really the upward curve that is now the Great Merge.
Mm.
That was the growth trajectory, starting with I have a big skeptic involved in this conversation here, but something feels right. I'm gonna follow that. And then when that opened up, it was like, whoa, tarot feels like the bridge. And then it was like, wait, I'm the bridge. And then it was like, wait, are there other things that are bridges? And now it's like, oh, I get it. Like that was kind of the process for me of being able to open and access what is now something that my body can hold, such as doing entity removal, possession removal, past life work, and be able to do it from a very neutral place.
Mhm. That's beautiful. I'm curious, you've spoken of your mentor, and I know that you work with her very, very closely. And so I'm curious about the process of that and how the two of you do your work together because she's quite involved in mentoring you in your spiritual gifts.
So I met this woman on the top of a pet store at the hardest time of my life. She had a sign up in all purple letters that said like psychic Julia. I was like, never going to notice that in my life. I don't even know who that woman is. But I was curious. I'd never had a tarot reading. I had never done anything spiritual before. I was more so like law of attraction introduction, not there's psychic beings who know how to connect with energies. That was not something I could hold at the time. One day, a friend hands me her card, her business card, and says, I think you would benefit from a tarot reading from this woman. I held on to it for about 4 months
Mm.
until finally I said, I'm going to go get a tarot reading. So I walk up pet store, literally can smell hamster food, like walking up the stairs to her space. I open up the door and this little woman is there, like can't be more than like 5'2". And so she invites me in and we're in this little room and she pulls tarot for me. And I am a talker, if you haven't already figured that out. And so I'm talking her head off about what I think my problem is, which completely defeats the purpose of the person pulling the tarot. And so she said, will you let the cards talk? I said, oh my God. Okay. So then she starts pulling through the cards and said, it's interesting because you think all of the challenges are on your paternal side, but everything I see is on your maternal side. And something unlocked for me. It was like I had a flash of all the memories of my life with my relationship with my mother. And I knew in that moment that she was accurate. Sometimes a lot of the things that we need to heal, it's like in plain sight.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, it's over here. All my issues are with my father. I need to heal. She goes, and then actually, have you been noticing all of this? And so that was my introduction into her work. She's a fifth generation psychic, and she is extremely private. Some of the things involve not being able to talk about the work that I do with her, not being able to talk about the depth of the work that I do with her, not being able to share what it is with anybody until the work is complete due to the level of risk that she does. And furthermore, I am the only person that she has ever mentored in 30 years of her being a psychic.
Wow.
So her children are involved in spiritual work. She's never mentored them in any work. But what happened was we worked together in 2019. She said I needed to do deeper work with my family, but the price was way too expensive for me at that time. I wasn't able to hold what I think was like $3,000 to start. And so I said no to the work. And then about 3 months or so later, I was living on a cruise ship, working for Disney at the time, performing Disney characters, working for Disney for a living. And I reached out to her and I said, I think I need your help. And so her and I used WhatsApp at the time while I was living on the cruise ship. And she works usually with crystals to connect to my vibration when she needs to connect quickly into my energy. And so thankfully, I kept the little crystal that she gave me from earlier on in 2019. And I had it in my purse. And so she used that as the connector to my energy while we were building our connection. And she worked with me from like October of 2019, probably until like April of 2020. And then that was it.
Mm.
I messaged her probably like 50 times, maybe. Hey, I miss you. How are you? Nothing. Crickets. Hey, I'm thinking about you. Merry Christmas. Nothing. Crickets. I said, oh, this is really how that relationship is going to be. Okay. Ooh, wow. End of 2022, I reach out to her because I know I have something going on. My health was horrible. I was going through such an intense loop of negative, depressive thoughts. And so I reached out to her and I said, I think I need your help. And this was the first time she had responded to me in what would have been well over a year and a half. And she says, you definitely need my help. So we ended up doing entity removal at that time. I had had multiple entities from a past life that had found me through hundreds of lifetimes and began to pull from my energy. That was that work. And then from there, we entered into a portal of what is now mentorship.
Mm.
She said, God's hand is in this. You have very big work in the world. This was before, basically right before the Great Merge came through. And she said she doesn't like to call it mentorship because she's old school. She calls whatever, like counseling or something. I don't know, something of that nature. But she's like, I am meant to help you stay grounded as you continue to grow your gifts. And that has literally been what she has done. I leave the house, she shields my energy. I'm on a call with Dr. Jenny Ward, she's shielding me. I go into my client's energy work, she's right there with me. She is basically my eye to ensure that I am always performing accurately. For the Great Merge, she's circling the house. She's preparing the land. She's making sure that what I am learning how to see in a level that honestly most people can't really even do. So I'm already at a level of advancement that is pretty extreme at this point. She has like another level. She has like guards and angels beyond anything that I am presently with my teams of spirit holding. And so in in the moment, I was very frustrated. I've had these moments with her many times because I would like to just be healed. I'd like to just sometimes like just be okay and not have to do really intense, serious work all the time. But at the same token, I am so grateful that I get to walk this path with somebody that in my personal journey is like the person for me. When you find like the mentor for you, it is the most confirming feeling in the world. And I have that. I have the harsh truth when I need it. Like, get out of your head. You're being a child, grow up. Like, whoa, okay. Like, okay. Then to also be like, I love you so deeply. And to truly feel that reciprocity of genuine love and support in my journey, selflessness in the journey, it's worth the world's weight in gold. So she's my person. And as of now, there's no end that we are aware of at this point. And that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's hard to find someone who is at that level, like to mentor you beyond where you're at. That's not an easy thing. So I can see why you are so connected to her. She obviously is incredibly skilled. And I've noticed a pattern where a lot of mentors are they're not always nice.
Yeah.
Nice to work with, right? Like, they tell the harsh truth even if it's, like, not what you wanna hear, it's not what you wanna do. Um, that I see that really, really consistently in high level mentorship.
Yeah, because when you're playing at a higher level, it's all about those little nuances. It's not so much about the fundamentals, like, here's how you start a business and keep it going. You don't need that. What you need are those little mindset shifts, those little tweaks in your energy that allow you to keep going. When I
Mhm.
get caught in a loop, and sometimes I don't want to know that I'm caught in a loop and I'm worried and I'm falling into scarcity and I'm stressing, what I need is somebody to be like, snap out of the spell.
Yeah.
Not somebody who's like, "I understand it must be hard complaining all the time." I need somebody who's expanding me, right? And thankfully, she knows my energy, especially because when her and I started in 2022, so the second time we began, I was in such a state of my health at the time that it was dangerous. My nervous system was so shot. I was up all night getting attacked by these entities. My health was in such a turbulent place that she knows every little nook and cranny about how my energy works.
Mhm.
That's a gift.
Mhm.
I'm ungrounded. I'm going in. I know exactly what to do. Breathe. Listen to your Disney music. Like she knows exactly what is going on, not just from a high level tweak perspective, but she knows exactly like, do I tough love her because that's what her energy needs, or do I go in and soothe her vibration and then tough love her? Like that is the gift of a mentor in your field who's also very psychically equipped.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, she's got the skill and she also has, like, that nuance of knowing what you need when, and then also knows you so well, so it's just a beautiful package of assistance, exactly what you need.
Yep, I feel very blessed, and I have a lot of people who are like, "Who is she? How do I talk? Like, how do I get a reading with her?" And I say the same thing I always say because this is what she's told me to say. If somebody needs spiritual work and they're inside of my world, it's because they are my vibrational match.
Mhm,
My work in the capacity of the work that I can do is very, very high level in terms of the risk and the capacity and the skill and strength that I have. If someone comes into my field and I don't feel like I can hold what I know is siphoning their energy, I know to pass it to her.
mhm,
So basically, if someone comes into her store or her shop and they are connecting with something that she doesn't feel she can handle, she'll pass it to me. But the
mm,
chances of her not being able to handle it is probably quite slim. The chances of me being able to not handle it is also quite slim because my capacity has grown so much that what is worse than being possessed by an entity? Like fully completely possessed. And I've been able to do it and completely reposition a path for somebody and feel it with complete neutral strength being able to perform that work. So the way we see it is if you're in my world and you're receiving the vibration of what I'm doing, then there's no need to connect with my mentor because you're connecting with her inadvertently. And only if it feels like what I can do, I'm not capable of doing within the context of that person's work, then I'll send them to her.
mhm. She obviously has, there are similarities in your path, but there are big differences as well. She is not called to this platform that you have been called to. And
Yep.
she does not want that. She does not need that. She is living her life in a way that is aligned for her.
Yes. And she's never had any mentors. So her mentors have been her angels and her guides. This path has been a very solid, like solitary path. It has been her path with herself and the growth of her gifts alone.
Mhm.
And I commend her for that. I would not be able to do this alone. And there's strength in being able to recognize that you don't have to do it alone. And yeah, that is her path. Her path is very remote. When she travels around the world, she needs to have certain stations around the world that people go and set up for her so she can do her work before she gets there. You won't know what she looks like. I've seen her so many times, and then every time I try to connect with her energy, can't find her in my vibration at all. Like, the shields that this woman has up, she never sent me a picture of her. Took me 2 years to know if her name was Julie or Julia. Like, truly, this woman is the definition of, in my opinion, what true deep spiritual work is. And those that are actually working on the front lines of guarding the
Mhm.
guards of this earth, they have to maintain that level of privacy. Unfortunately or fortunately, the way you're looking at what I do, I have to be more forward facing. And so that's why having her hold my energy allows me to keep going.
Mhm. Yeah,
You see the
wow.
lights just turn on?
Yes, they just flickered. For those of you listening, that was really neat.
Love that for us.
So, Victoria, I'd love to have you speak to how can people kind of get to know what's going on with the Great Merge and get involved if they feel called to.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head that it's a calling.
Mhm.
It's that deep inner knowing that you are meant to contribute. What I always tell the people who are called to the Great Merge is they're usually called because of wanting to be of service, but then also to the location. So each of us have a certain pull to different places on this planet. And so if you're called to a certain location, then you know that you're called to do the work based on whatever that merge is. And so on my website, you can find all information about the Great Merge, or even on my Instagram. I talk a lot about what the disclosures are of each merge throughout the year. And that is going to be the best way to connect with the Great Merge. Trust the calling plus the location. That is where the highest service can be, when you listen to the calling and you follow the fact that that grid point has information and healing for you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I always love connecting with you, and I just love everything that you said today. I know my listeners will too.
Thank you so much, my love. I'm so happy to connect with you in this way.
Take care.